And we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from in the world. Welcome to another High Vibe Conversation. I'm your host, Shel Shapiro, and with me today are the High Vibe women and also special guest, Ambassador Terry Earthwind Nichols. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Please, in the comments, let us know where you're tuning in from so that we know how global our reach is today. And Terry, welcome. I am so excited to dive in on this conversation with you. Why don't you introduce yourself for anyone who's never met you before?
Well, thank you very much for all of you and your lovely invite and encouragement to be here. Um, uh, I'm an 8-time author, international speaker, international top 10 thought leader. And I like dancing when I'm not on Zoom. And geez, where do I begin? I live in the beautiful mountains of Western North Carolina in the United States, near an absolutely stunning, largest private home in America called Biltmore. It's amazing. And we go there often. And I'm married to a most incredible girl. She's the love of my life. And I talk about her behind her back often. Unfortunately, it's on camera this time, but that's a little snooze about me. And I'm excited about our conversation today. It's going to be cool. Thanks.
Yeah, today we're talking about people first. And so I'm going to dive right into this because what's coming up for me is that we get a lot of people, and I'm working on being more selfish, but there are a lot of people out there that are selfish to begin with and don't put others first. So, in this new day and age of like being more empathetic and leading with empathy, how can we navigate this conversation to put people first? Like, what's the most important thing we should start this conversation with?
Well, for me, all too often a supervisor, manager, leader, and others on up within an organization um, are so focused on what they're responsible for, they forget the fact that they used to be one of those down there. And they shut that off for some reason because, unfortunately, generation after generation over the last 100 years or so, that's how promotions went. They just threw you into the position and sink or swim. Okay, if you sink, I'll replace you. If you swim, good for you. And that was really what it was all about. And that made some very terrible supervisors, leaders. There's the great resignation we speak about regularly all over the internet. I was reading New York Times this morning, and the mass migration out of New York City has put them at 7.7% open jobs for basic services and all kinds of stuff. Companies and corporations, government services, all those kinds of stuff, they have to look at the world in a whole different manner, and they've got to do it now, because when you get to use that empathy, empathy is a very powerful tool. It's more powerful than do this, do that. It's, understanding and recognize we're all in this together. We just do different jobs. Okay. I was on a recent interview where I gave the example. I had just arrived at a new position in my corporate life, and I heard a junior say to a senior, "Well, you know how to do this stuff. Why don't you do it?" And I interrupted, and I just talked to him for a few minutes and kind of got an understanding of where he was coming from. He was having some rough time at home. Okay, we all do that. We all happen those days. His response to his supervisor was not the right idea. The supervisor started it by saying, "Get that done now," without telling him how to do it or anything. And I said, "You were on track with one part of it, young man, and that is we all have different jobs to do. I'm paid to do my job. You're paid to do your job. Your supervisor's paid to do his job. We all have jobs to do. We don't have an hierarchy because of those jobs. It's just different jobs. And once this young man understood that, his perception of the whole thing really shifted. And I think that's a very powerful analogy for people to understand out there who's listening to us today and who will pick up on the recording. I hope that response was good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And your new book, Consortium, dives more into this, right? Like it goes into depth. Oh, yeah, there you go. Available on Amazon, folks, for anybody who's interested in reading it, because it is a bestseller. It is making headlines everywhere, and we were excited to see you come out with this. So, yeah, if you want to learn more about Consortium and the way that people first can become part of your leadership team and style, I highly recommend reading that book. What else is coming up for the rest of you ladies? Don't all jump in at once. I know you're waiting for other people to go first.
I'm happy to jump in, and I have also read the book, and I highly recommend it. It's true leadership, because the truth is, we are never leaders unless someone is willing to follow. If no one is following me, I can call myself a leader, and it's just not going to make a difference. People might follow me because they have to. If I'm in a position of making them, that doesn't make me a leader. And I love this approach, and the empathy is about building that trust that people are following because they're self-motivated too, and because they also are encouraged in this safe environment to know themselves and understand how their values are aligned with the company values. And I love your approach to this, Terry, in your book and in many conversations. Thank you.
Maybe you're waiting for a response. That was terrific.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go
Big
from
fan.
here.
You're right, and it's very true. The book is based on Consortium is the business model for the 21st century, where everything that the company is involved in, right down to from the chairman of the board of an international corporation, for say, or mom and pop team, right down to the person who's standing in front of a customer. They all create a vision together to take this company to a place in the future, not January 31st, 2026. This is a place. This is an actuality. And then you build upon that vision backwards to today, kind of like going to grandmother's house. I love using this as an example. You're going to have to stop let the kids out and take care of themselves. And there's going to be gas stations. We know there's going to be traffic in one way or another. And yet when it happens, we get upset because we've put ourselves into a goal of getting to grandmother's house, not the enjoyment and the achievement of being at grandma's house. And so that mindset then permeates everybody in the car. Well, it's the same thing with companies. If everybody's locked into end of quarter on September 28th, 2022, we've got to be here. And no matter what you get there, people, then you have this goal and this timeline that's just holding you down. And sometimes you're successful, more times you're not. Okay. And eventually it's going to start working against you, particularly as you raise up within the corporation, because nobody's mentoring and teaching you how to take care of your people, much less take care of your family. So this interconnectedness of how a person reacts and acts in life is really paramount about what they do in their jobs. And the Great Resignation is the perfect time for me to launch the book. The book was, when the lockdown and the Great Resignation occurred, my book was going to be published sometimes in 22, 23. I had no idea. It was in infancy. I had an outline of the book. That's all I had because it was in the future. Then all of a sudden, COVID and lockdown and all the responses of international companies and corporations about closing entire divisions instead of just, okay, everybody go home and let's figure this out. An entire merger and acquisition division of an international mortgage company closed. They ended them right in the middle of the lockdown. That is the old business model. And when everything started to come back to work, these people were still available. Yeah, that's fine. You can contract with me. You're not hiring me back. You can contract me for a 60% raise. You're going to pay for me now. You throw me out on the street and make me survive through this pandemic lockdown and all the fearness about that. You're paying for it now because I now have a small company and I'm contracted with your competitors. Whole different mindset. People out there going, no more of this. I'm in control of my life and I want to be loved and I want to give love and I want to be happy and I want to do something that makes me happy with other people. Consortium creates that opportunity for everybody to achieve. Now, you hear about overachievers all the time. Overachievers burn out because their supervisors, usually one person here, one person there, and they burn out because they just work them so hard that they fail. In this business model, let's say all of us are in the same company and we're all making achievements together. We feed off of each other's energy. Okay. We see where we're going and we know that we're going to get there together. And if I'm having a bad day, I start having a better day just because the energy of us as a group starts to raise that. Now, here's something, ladies and gentlemen, that for those of you who are listening and going to listen to this recording, here's this really key to this whole thing is when you're working in this type of environment, you can still do work from home, but it's not as much fun. You want to be in the room with your team, feeling the energy. So guess what, chairmen of the board? This will get your people back to work. Okay, so there's a benefit for everyone with the key on all of us achieving the attainment of our vision. And then guess what, companies? You get to make a new vision. You don't stop there. You get to do it again. And every person in your company gets to help you. I hope that's a long response, but I think it kind of hit its point.
It sure did, Terry. What was coming up for me as you were speaking was thinking about not just the mindset of it, but the collaboration behind it, the relationship building that's at play, where you're not letting somebody, even though I'm not a military person, but like I often make the analogy, for lack of a better word, or the reference that like there's no man left behind. Well, like now we're bringing each other up by making sure that everybody else around us is good too. So if you're having a bad day, that energy that everybody's feeding off of, like will bring the person that's lower up. And that's what high vibe conversations are all about, right? Bringing each other up to that higher level, because we're not all going to be high energy all the time, high vibration all the time. Some days are going to be lower than others, and it's mitigating that, but also like recognizing when somebody else needs a little bit more of those positive vibes. So that's what was coming up for me as you were speaking, and I just love that whole mindset shift of it from like the micro to macro level, because it's bringing people in on all ends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely love, absolutely is my word today, Terry's vision strategy roadmap. And I've used it with at least 3 of you guys. And the time that really blew my mind, how important it is and how cool it is and how it really, really works and changes lives, is I was doing it with a woman who had 10 kids. She had 6 months prior to working through it with me. She had a baby, and her daughter had had a baby. So her oldest had a baby, and she had a baby. And she was homeschooling, and she also had a husband who was in and out of the hospital for alcoholism. Like, this woman, would she ever have any time to write? She was a wonderful writer, super creative, and it was just killing her not to have her creative time. So when I set up the roadmap with her, she knew exactly where she was, even so she contacted me afterwards and thanked me so profusely because she's like, yeah, even if I got like a 5 or 10 minute spot of time, a little piece of time, I knew exactly where I had left off. And I moved forward every single time I got this precious little gift of time. And yeah, it felt so good to provide a means for her to do what she loved to do, and to like keep her out, publicly, being able to touch the lives of others. So that was just probably the best experience I've ever had, taking somebody through the vision strategy roadmap.
This also prepares companies for the next virus or the next pandemic or whatever. We're all caught off on guard on this. We have no clue what to do, and we just evolved. Okay, that's what humans do. They evolve. And in the future, when you have a vision instead of a timeline, you don't miss your goals for this quarter. You just stop everything, take care of your people, make sure they're safe, and then do whatever it is you want to do to keep the company going, with the idea that soon as this is gone or it subsides, you come back to work and you just keep going from where you were. You don't dwell on what you've lost, because you really haven't lost anything. If you didn't do anything, you didn't lose it. However, with a vision strategy roadmap, you just get back on the road. It's like stopping at the gas station. You get back on the road and you go. Okay, so that's a good analogy. That was quite a vision that you had there, Linda.
Yeah, and I'm noticing that when you combine that roadmap with putting people first, you also get to not put yourself last. It kind of eliminates burnout, because everybody around you would notice that you were taking on more, and they would help bring you in. But also because you're carving out that time for yourself, whether it's the 5-10 minutes a day on the roadmap to like just pick up where you left off and eliminate those timelines and the deadlines, like, you're not forgetting about yourself. You're not losing sight of who you are. So part of being people first also means that you're part of that. You're not leaving yourself behind in any regard. And so I wanted to bring that up because I was like, oh shit, like, okay, that just clicked for me.
It also what I call keeps you at the level of your soul, for lack of better words, because it keeps you out of your head. I always say the soul works in onesies. It keeps you focused on that one thing, that next thing. And it can be such a little piece and just like super easy to do. And we procrastinate because we don't have clarity. When we have clarity, we know what really gives us pleasure and what we're going after. Even if it's a task you might not want to do, you'll want the outcome. So just focusing on the outcome of the task will get you through the task. It's such a beautiful process.
If I may, in this concept also, we're born with love already. We learn fear, we learn dishonesty, we learn grief, we learn all of that. And that excuse is only as good as until you become an adult. Now you're making choices, okay? Choices that affect you. And all too often, those choices are not the best choice, and they're not when you make them, because you're under the gun for a timeline or a goal or shareholder report or what have you, and all of a sudden dishonesty comes in there. Under this, the consortium and people first, that doesn't come to play because you're not forced into creating stuff that's not there to show that you've done something. You just keep going. And when you keep going, you exceed. You're far exceeding the expectations of a sales and marketing goal sheet for the year anyway, because everybody's pumped up all the time. So that's very important for people to know too, that it takes away that dishonesty factor.
I was thinking about, I think that we've all heard like you underestimate what you can do in a year and overestimate what you can do in a day, something like that. Our concept of time is very skewed. And when I'm doing copywriting projects, I've learned that whatever amount of time I'm going to quote, I need to just almost double it, because I will think, oh, this is how much time, and it's always more time than you think it's going to take to do something. So when you have something that you're working towards, it's a lot easier to keep a rhythm and keep motivated and want to keep going, because you can just pay attention to what you're headed towards instead of when, and hyper fixating on when something gets done instead of the quality and the energy that you put into it. And I think that and then it can also kind of work where when I give myself that extra time, I relax and I do actually get it done in the shorter amount of time. But if I quote for a short amount of time, I'm stressed and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have to get this done in an hour or two. And then it's harder to get it done. And it's it colors your experience, or flavors your time differently when you just are putting these restrictions around it. It's we can feel it. We can feel how constrained we are when there's somebody kind of breathing down our neck, metaphorically. We know that even if we're alone in a room. And when we can have space and we feel that, I think we've all had that feeling of somebody's being really generous with me. They're being generous with their time. They're being generous with, the resources available, and you instantly feel better. You feel more confident, you feel more capable, and you want to contribute. Whereas somebody who's really stingy and holds back from you, or wants you to defend or justify things, or is, kind of has that rushed energy. It's that those are not ever the people that anybody is I love working with them. Nobody loves that, even the people that are that way don't enjoy working with other people that are that way. They will complain about it just as much. So we all know, we all know that that's really unpleasant. And I was thinking about how at the beginning of summer, I sat my kids down and we planned, each one of us picked one thing that we wanted to make sure we did this summer. And then we made a list of other things we could do when and if we have time, just ideas. And that was really helpful for me because summer goes by so fast that I can just focus on making sure that these three things happen, instead of feeling every day I need to be entertaining my kids, or, every weekend has to be a big ordeal. And they're much more understanding than when this morning they said, "What are our plans today?" And I said, "I'm working all day because tomorrow we're going to the water park," and so they're "Okay, well, we'll just occupy ourselves today." I'm "Cool," but they're willing to do that, and they're not going to complain or ask to go do other things because we have a shared vision and an idea of what we're working towards and what we want to be able to do together. So it's been cool to kind of create that team with my kids too.
And it takes the pressure off, one, of having to be on and doing all the things all the time, or overextending yourself because you want to live up to whatever expectations you think your kids or your your colleagues might have. But the reverse is also true. Like, you've taken away the expectations that your kids or your team have of you performing at a certain level. So it works from both ends of like everybody like, all right, this is what we've set in motion, and now I don't have any expectations of like, I said I was going to do this, they said they were going to do that. There's no deadlines of when that thing could potentially happen. You just like have this overarching like, this is the one thing that would be nice if we got it done, and when it happens is kind of like up in the air. I love that.
It's definitely everybody doing their best. It's a trust factor. Really creates a beautiful culture of trust. And when people are vulnerable and you know what's going on in other people's lives and you know their character, you can really relax in the fact that, you know, the link didn't come or this didn't get done or whatever is going on. And it's okay. It will, right? And it's just it keeps everybody super calm.
I think it opens up opportunities for more open communication too. Let's say you're working on something to finalize a presentation deck or something like that for a meeting that's tomorrow. That has a deadline. And you're just having a tough time getting it done. Under the old business model, you would just get crazier and crazier and crazier about getting it done. Under this new model, under consortium, it's like, hey, who all can help me? I'm having a problem getting this finished for the meeting tomorrow. Who can help me? Oh yeah, I can take 15 minutes. I can take 30 minutes. Okay, copy the deck and let me see if I can bring something in there. And all of a sudden everybody's in it and it's done, right? As opposed to the one person not being able to share their frustration and working until 4:00 in the morning to get something that was good, where they could have asked for their friends and their coworkers to jump in and put it together. And then it went from good to great. There's, you know, the expectation is we're going to get it done. The vision is to create the deck, not create the deck in this amount of time. You take the time out of that. It's very powerful.
Shell just mentioned the trending video where the boss is like, "What are you doing?" to the secretary, and then she's like, "I'm doing my best, Tom." I love that too. Dora, how about you? You're using the map to get books done and the gift course.
Oh yeah, things are happening. Things are happening. But what really came up for me when I was listening to you guys is seeing this from a recovery people-pleasing perspective. I've had so many bosses during the years, tried a lot of different work within retail and shops and beauty salons and everything. And what I found is that if you do your best work and try to be a good model employee, you might get recognized for that. You might even get a tiny little raise, but they will also slap on a whole lot of other tasks for you to do. So just to refer to my last job where I was for 10 years, in the beginning, there were several young girls that had like temp jobs that they came by after school, or they were working Saturdays. They were doing all the cleaning and all the stacking and all of that kind of stuff. So I could just concentrate on the most important things, and like customers and inventory and stuff like that. But the boss, he seemed to think that I was doing really well and he could save money by having just one employee instead of many. So as they were quitting when they moved away to go to other schools or got more like full-time jobs or things like that, I was left alone and I couldn't say no. I mean, the boss trusted in me to do the job of 5 people. So I did the jobs, you know, and it broke me. So I want bosses to be, or management to be more aware of their employees, and if they are having people pleasing tendencies, they might need help actually to dial back a bit and not take on too much, because it's super, super hard to stop and to say, no, I can't do that when you are a people pleaser. You just want to say yes and do more and put everyone else in front of yourself. People first, me last, you know? And when you have a boss that puts the finances first, the economy of the shop first, and employees last, then that's not a good mix. So it's a good thing that we create awareness of this, and people can be more aware of their employees, and that they really could need a, like, are you okay with the workload? You know, you don't have to take on everything yourself. So that would have made a lot of difference for me anyway. So, yeah.
Excellent point. Oh, Dora, that is such an excellent point. I love it.
Thanks. Hard-learned lesson.
Yeah, and it brings my mind to the actual intention of the leader. There are many, models, and we get to pay attention to the true intention behind the model. If you're showing someone, like the behavior of affection, but your intention is not really behind it, then that's manipulation. That's something else. So as a leader, it's so important to do that self-care and that self-reflection as to why, what's behind me making these decisions, and where is that at? That's also a choice. Like, where is that really gonna take us? Because that didn't serve anyone for you to feel that way.
No, it really didn't. I mean, it drove me into the hospital, and I never went back. He tried himself to jump in and take on all the jobs that I had been doing for 2.5 years alone. And he managed 3 weeks before he sold the whole shop because he couldn't manage. So it wasn't good for anyone, not at all.
Sounds like you were owed some retroactive salary, I believe, for the additional jobs.
Oh yeah, I should have been paid for 5 men, I'm sure. And it was hard labor. Yeah.
For 7 years too. Like, they should have retroactively paid you for the 7 years that then you were not able to work because you were healing from all of that. Bottom line is people first, not money. Like, sure, money is nice, it can pay the bills, but that should not be the goal. Treat your people the way that they deserve to be treated, and then everybody will want to help and be part of a team and grow together. So yeah, such a good discussion as always. Anyone have any last minute thoughts they want to add? Any juicy tidbits before we?
Well, I'd love to add, the examples, and I will not start listing them, but the examples were this way of treating your people and putting them first does benefit people and profit. It does go together so nicely. And also, just what came up for me is that I remember when I was focusing in on goals, and what a huge shift it was for me to go from goals to vision. And let's take an example that I had this goal of like running every day of the week. Let's use that as an example. And this really disconnected me from myself. Firstly, that goal was like sprung out of my head only. I was not even connected with myself when I made that goal. It wasn't aligned with me. And it cost me to every day thinking that I had to do everything the exact same way. And truth is that life happens. And we get to reconnect with ourselves every day, every step of the process. Like, what does this look like for me today? And I remember just discovering more about myself, and like Terry and Linda teaches, like I started understanding what a vision truly is and how that's a part of me. It's like, it's not a new thing. It's not outside of me. It's already there. So it's just embodying it, really. And it became a beautiful process of enjoying that journey and reconnecting and what's the next step and what does this look like for me today. So it's a really, really beautiful process. Thank you so much, Terry.
Wow, how do you follow that one up? Thank you so much. That was really profound. Thank you.
Well, this has been an amazing high vibe conversation. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuning in. Thank you, Terry, for joining us today. I love talking about people and building relationships. And so we've touched on so many ways that we can put people first, as leaders, as humans, as parents, as professionals, and anywhere in between. And certainly we've also navigated some of the things that can go wrong and not be so good when people aren't put first. The burnout, the overworking, the people pleasing, the lower vibration, the bad days. Certainly that's given me something more to think about when it comes to like how I navigate going forward and building my business and the people that I surround myself with. So I hope it's given you something to think about as well, as you navigate your careers and your lives together or separately. This has been another high vibe conversation. Tune in next week for another conversation that will be just as good. We hope you'll join us. Let us know if you're watching the replay, when you came in on, what you resonated with. We'll be sure to answer the comments. And I'm gonna wrap this up and say bye for now.